Welcome back, my fairy tale friends, for the third episode of Forgotten Fairy Tales. I am Catherine, your storyteller, and this is my first request, The Tinder Box by Hans Christian Andersen. So, without further ado, if you are sitting comfortably, then I shall begin. The Tinder Box by Hans Christian Andersen. There came a soldier marching down the high road. 1, 2, 1, 2. He had his knapsack on his back and his sword at his side as he came home from the wars. On the road he met a witch, an ugly old witch, a witch whose lower lip dangled right down on her chest. "Good evening, soldier," she said. "What a fine sword you've got there, and what a big knapsack. Aren't you every inch a soldier? And now you shall have money, as much as you please." "That's very kind, you old witch," said the soldier. "See that big tree?" The witch pointed to one nearby them. "It's hollow to the roots. Climb to the top of the trunk and you'll find a hole through which you can let yourself down deep under the tree. I'll tie a rope around your middle so that when you call me, I can pull you up again." "What would I do deep down under that tree?" the soldier wanted to know. "Fetch money," the witch said. "Listen, when you touch bottom, you'll find yourself in a great hall. It is very bright there, because more than 100 lamps are burning. By their light, you will see 3 doors. Each door has a key in it, so you can open them all. If you walk into the first room, you'll see a large chest in the middle of the floor. On it sits a dog, and his eyes are as big as saucers. But don't worry about that. I will give you my blue checkered apron to spread out on the floor. Snatch up that dog and set him on my apron. Then you can open the chest and take out as many pieces of money as you please. They are all copper. But if silver suits you better, then go into the next room. There sits a dog, and his eyes are as big as mill wheels. But don't care about that. Set the dog on my apron while you line your pockets with silver. Or maybe you'd rather have gold. You can, you know. You can have all the gold you can carry if you go into the third room. The only hitch is that there, on the money chest, sits a dog, and each of his eyes are as big as the round tower. That's the sort of dog he is. But never you mind how fierce he looks. Just set him on my apron, and he'll do you no harm as you help yourself from the chest to all the gold you want." "That suits me," said the soldier. "But what do you get out of all this, you old witch? I suppose that you want your share?" "No, indeed," said the witch. "I don't want a penny of it. All I ask is for you to fetch me an old tinder box that my grandmother forgot the last time she was down there." "Good," said the soldier. "Tie the rope around me." "Here it is," said the witch. "And here's my blue checked apron." The soldier climbed up to the hole in the tree and let himself slide through it, feet foremost down into the great hall where the hundreds of lamps were burning. just as the witch had said. Now he threw open the first door he came to. Oh, there sat a dog glaring at him with eyes as big as saucers. "You're a nice fellow," said the soldier, as he shifted him to the witch's apron and took all the coppers that his pockets would hold. He shut up the chest, set the dog back on it, and made for the second room. Alas and alack, there sat the dog with eyes as big as mill wheels. "Don't you look at me like that." The soldier set him on the witch's apron. "You're apt to strain your eyesight." When he saw the chest brimful of silver, he threw away all his coppers and filled both his pockets and knapsack with silver alone. Then he went into the third room. Oh, what a horrible sight to see! The dog in there really did have eyes as big as the round tower, and when he rolled them, they spun like wheels. "Good evening," the soldier said, and saluted, for such a dog he had never seen before. But on second glance he thought to himself, "This won't do." So he lifted the dog down to the floor and threw open the chest. What a sight! Here was gold and more to spare. He could buy out all of Copenhagen with it. He could buy all the cakewoman's sugar pigs and all the tin soldiers, whips and rocking horses there are in the world. Yes, there was really money. In short order, the soldier got rid of all the silver coins he had stuffed in his pockets and knapsack to put gold in their place. Yes, sir, he crammed all his pockets, his knapsacks, his cap and his boots so full that he could scarcely walk. Now he was made of money. Putting the dog back on the chest, he banged out the door and called up through the hollow tree. "Pull me up now, you old witch!" "Have you got the tinder box?" asked the witch. "Confound the tinder box!" the soldier shouted. "I clean forgot it." When he fetched it, the witch hauled him up. There he stood on the high road again, with his pockets, boots, knapsack and cap full of gold. "What do you want with the tinder box?" he asked the old witch. "None of your business," she told him. "You've had your money, so hand over my tinder box." "Nonsense," said the soldier. "I'll take out my sword and I'll cut your head off if you don't tell me at once what you want with it." "I won't!" the witch screamed at him. So he cut her head off. There she lay. But he tied all his money in her apron, slung it over his shoulder, stuck the tinder box in his pocket, and struck out for town. It was a splendid town. He took the best rooms at the best inn and ordered all the good things he liked to eat, for he was a rich man now because he had so much money. The servant who cleaned his boots may have thought them remarkably well worn for a man of such means, but that was before he went shopping. Next morning he bought boots worthy of him and the best clothes. Now that he had turned out to be such a fashionable gentleman, people told him all about the splendours of their town, all about their king, and what a pretty princess he had for a daughter. "Where can I see her?" the soldier inquired. "You can't see her at all," everyone said. "She lives in a great copper castle inside all sorts of walls and towers. Only the king can come in or go out of it, for it's been foretold that the princess will marry a common soldier. The king would much rather she didn't." "I'd like to see her just the same," the soldier thought, but there was no way to manage it. Now he lived a merry life. went continually to the theatre, drove out in the royal gardens, and gave much money in alms to the poor. He knew by past experience how miserable it was not to have a shilling in one's pocket. He was always splendidly dressed and had a crowd of friends, who one and all declared he was a most capital fellow, a real gentleman, and that pleased our soldier very much. But as he was spending and giving every day, and never received anything in return, his money began to fail him. At last he had only 2 pence left, and was forced to remove from his splendid apartments and take refuge in an attic, where he had to brush his boots and darn his clothes himself, and where none of his friends ever came to see him, because there were so many stairs to go up. It was quite fatiguing. One evening, when he sat in the dark without even enough money to buy a candle, he suddenly remembered there was a candle end in the tinder box that he had picked up when the witch sent him down the hollow tree. So he brought out this tinder box and began to strike light. But no sooner had he rubbed the flintstone and made the sparks fly out, than the door burst suddenly open, and the dog with eyes as large as teacups, which he had seen in the cavern beneath the tree, stood before him and said, "What commands has my master for his slave?" "This is a pretty joke," cried the soldier. "A fine sort of tinder box this is, if it will really provide me with whatever I want. Fetch me some money this instant," said he to the dog. The creature vanished, and in half a minute he was back again, holding in his mouth a large bag full of pence. So now the soldier understood the rare virtue of this charming tinder box. If he struck the flint only once, the dog that sat on the chest full of copper came to him. If he struck it twice, the dog that watched over the silver answered his summons. And if he struck it 3 times, he was forthwith attended by the monstrous guardian of the golden treasure. The soldier could now move back to his princely apartments. He bought himself an entirely new suit of clothes, and all his friends remembered him again, and loved him as much as ever. But one evening the thought occurred to him, "How truly ridiculous it is that no one should be allowed to see this princess. They all say she's so beautiful. What a shame it is that she should be shut up in some great copper palace. And I do want to see her. Where's my tinder box, by the by?" He struck the flint, and lo, before him stood the dog with eyes as large as teacups. "It is rather late, I must own," began the soldier, "but I do want to see the princess so much. Only for 1 minute, you know." And the dog was out of the door, and before the soldier had time to think of what he should say or do, he was back again with the princess, sitting asleep on his back. A real princess was this, so beautiful, so enchantingly beautiful. The soldier could not help himself, and kissed her. The dog ran back to the palace with the princess that very minute. Next morning, while she was at breakfast with the king and queen, the princess said that she had a very strange dream. She had dreamt that she was riding on a dog, an enormously large dog, and that a soldier had knelt down and kissed her. "A pretty sort of dream indeed," exclaimed the queen, and she insisted that one of the ladies of the court should watch by the princess's bedside on the following night, in case she should again be disturbed by dreams. Next evening the soldier summoned the dog to fetch the princess again. So he did, and ran as fast as he could. However, not so fast, but that the ancient dame watching at the princess's couch was able to follow them. She saw the dog vanish in a large house. Then, thinking to herself, "Now I know what to do," she took out a piece of chalk and made a great white cross on the door. But on his way back, the dog chanced to observe the white cross on the door, so he immediately took another piece of chalk and set crosses on every door throughout the town. Early in the morning came out the king, the queen, the old court dame, and all the officers of the royal household, every one of them curious to see where the princess had been. "Here it is," exclaimed the king, as soon as he saw the first street door with a cross chalked on it. "My dear, where are your eyes? This is the house," cried the queen, seeing the second door bear a cross. "No, this is surely—" "Why, here's a cross too!" cried all of them together, on discovering that there were crosses on all the doors. It was evident that their search would be in vain, and they gave up. But the queen was an exceedingly wise and prudent woman. She now took her gold scissors, cut a large piece of silk into strips, and sewed these strips together to make a pretty neat little bag. This bag she filled with the finest, whitest flour, tied it to the princess's waist, and then again took up her golden scissors and cut a little hole in the bag, just large enough to let the flour drop out gradually all the time the princess was moving. That evening the dog came again, took the princess on his back, and ran away with her to the soldier. He never perceived how the flour went drip, drip, dripping all the way from the palace to the soldier's room, and from the soldier's room back to the palace. So next morning the king and queen easily found where their daughter had been carried, and they took the soldier and cast him into prison. And now he sat in prison. Oh, how dark it was, and how wearisome. And the turnkey kept coming in to remind him that tomorrow he was to be hanged. This piece of news was no means agreeable, and the tinder box had been left in his lodgings at the inn. When morning came, he could, through his narrow iron gating, watch the people all hurrying out of the town to see him hanged. He could hear the drums beating, and presently, too, he saw the soldiers marching to the place of execution. What a crowd there was rushing by! Among the rest was a shoemaker's apprentice. He bustled on with such speed that one of his slippers flew off and struck the bars of the soldier's prison window. "Stop, stop, little prentice!" cried the soldier. "It's of no use to you to be in such a hurry, for none of the fun will begin till I come. But if you'll oblige me by running to my lodgings and fetching me my tinder box, I'll give you 2 pence. But you must run for your life." The boy liked the idea of earning 2 pence, so away he raced and brought the tinder box to the soldier. And then, yes, now we shall hear what happened. Outside the town, a high gallows had been built. Around it stood soldiers and many 100,000 people. The king and queen sat on a splendid throne, opposite the judge and the whole council. The soldier already stood upon the ladder, but just as they were about to put the rope around his neck, he said the custom was to grant a poor criminal one last small favour. He wanted to smoke a pipe of tobacco, the last he'd be smoking in this world. The king couldn't refuse him, so the soldier struck fire from his tinder box once, twice, and a 3rd time. There stood all the dogs, one with eyes as big as saucers, one with eyes as big as mill wheels, and one with eyes as big as the round tower. "Help me, save me from the hanging," said the soldier. Those dogs took the judges and all the council, some by the leg and some by the nose, and tossed them so high that they came down broken to bits. "Don't!" cried the king, but the biggest dog took him and the queen too, and tossed them up after the others. Then the soldiers trembled and the people shouted, "Soldier, be our king and marry the pretty princess." So they put the soldier in the king's carriage. All three of his dogs danced in front of it and shouted, "Hurrah!" The boys whistled through their fingers and the soldiers saluted. The princess came out of the copper castle to be queen, and that suited her exactly. The wedding lasted all of a week, and the three dogs sat at the table with their eyes open wider than ever before. The end. Thank you everyone for listening to another great story. If you do have any requests, please message below and subscribe for further stories coming to you very soon.